The little Rutte who runs NATO, Mark Rutte, erstwhile Prime Minister of the Netherlands, though before that he seems to have been some kind of travelling salesman. I'm not making that up. The last guy was a tailor from Norway. This guy is a man who used to travel around with a suitcase offering gloves and hosiery to little retailers, at least if I'm properly informed. He has said that he personally will expel the United States of America from NATO. Now, I'm not sure if he realized just how much of a rejoicing would greet such an act. But of course, it betrays a level of delusion amongst the warmongering leaders in Europe. This man was the Prime Minister of an important European country just the other day. Now he's openly, publicly threatening to expel the funder, armour, and overwhelmingly biggest component of NATO, so that he can go on fighting Russia if the Americans decide that they don't want to. As a level of self-delusion, it's matched only by the German government, which has actually collapsed as a result of its policy towards Ukraine, but is still snarling from the floor. Not that we can have a general election anytime soon in Germany, said little soldier Scholz. Why? There isn't enough paper in Germany for the ballot papers. This Germany used to be the powerhouse of the continent of Europe. Now it can't have an election because it doesn't have enough paper for the ballot papers. Now, if you think that is the pits, you ain't seen nothing yet. Although not in the EU, Keir Starmer is the Prime Minister of, I'd argue, the second most important European country, and he's a human rights lawyer. He was on his feet in the House of Commons today and was asked by a member about the Genocide Convention, about the definition of genocide. This was necessary to clarify statements made by Idi Amin Lame just the other week, who said that the situation in Gaza could not be a genocide because not enough people have been killed. Millions of people have to be killed for it to be a genocide, said the Foreign Secretary. He at least had the excuse that he's not a lawyer, never mind a human rights lawyer. But of course, that's not what they said about Srebrenica. That's not what they said about the genocide that they called out and have marketed ever since for decades, having caused a war over it, was taking place in Kosovo. They told us Kosovo was a genocide. They told us Bosnia was a genocide. But there weren't millions of people killed there. So by Lame's definition, how could it be a genocide? Or what about the Uyghurs in China, where absolutely nobody has been killed? Well, their definition of genocide is the fake allegation that Uyghur clothes and culture is suppressed. That's a genocide. But murdering 170,000 people out of a population of 2.2 million, that's not a genocide. According to David Lammy, well, the Prime Minister himself, eminent King's Counsel, human rights lawyer, was asked if Gaza constituted a genocide today. And he answered, I am well aware of the definition of genocide, which is why I have never described what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. He might just as well have stood up and said, fuck Palestine. I don't give a toss about it. Well, his members of parliament sat mutely while he did it. So I hope that every voter in the United Kingdom who cares about Palestine, will have made careful note of the Prime Minister's stance today, and when they next get the chance to vote against this repulsive excuse for a Labour Party, that they will do so. Now, I suspect the big news of the night, although not that much of it is hard news. Let me make that caveat right away. I was told 10 minutes before I came on air that Tucker Carlson was to be Donald Trump's next press secretary. But that turned out to be fake news. And other so-called announcements may turn out to be fake news. And I earnestly pray that they are. Whilst Tucker Carlson would have been a marvellous press secretary, the preeminent broadcaster of our age, would have been great to see him every day in the Situation Room, in the Oval Office, in the press conferences, facing the Washington Press Bureau. They wouldn't have known what hit them. But it was fake news. But I've been waiting for the appointment of Tulsi Gabbard. I fully expected her to be made the Secretary of State, the Foreign Secretary of the United States of America. She's the best qualified to be so, and she's got the best political views, or the least worst political views of those in the running for that position. But Tulsi Gabbard has not yet darkened the doorstep of the Trump White House to be. Tulsi Gabbard would appear to have been used as lipstick on the pig of the worst neoliberal, neocon, warmongering collection of people since the guys that are already there. In fact, if Marco Rubio does turn out to be the new Secretary of State, well, it would be a close-run thing whether Antony Blinken or him was the worst criminal. And yet, that's not been denied, and it is now repeatedly being pressed and apparently accepted by the MAGA crowd. Now, Marco Rubio didn't just insult Trump to the nth degree, didn't just call him corrupt, incompetent, stupid, over and over again. Trump insulted him over and over again, and crucially said he was bought and paid for by the lobby. Well, if he's bought and paid for by the lobby, why are you thinking of giving him the most powerful position after yours in the entire United States of America? This is inexplicable. Rubio is a man bent on regime change in Cuba, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua. He's a walking recipe for war and turmoil throughout Latin America, from which come the tidal wave of refugees crossing your border that you're always complaining about. You want more refugees? Make Marco Rubio your Secretary of State. And then there's the Defense Secretary. The new Defense Secretary, actually formally named already by Trump, not speculation, believes in the red heifers. You remember them? The red heifers, the two entirely red cows, specially bred, that are to be slaughtered at the walls of Jerusalem so that the third temple can be constructed on the ground of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third most holy shrine in Islam. If you want war throughout the world, then you've chosen the best Defense Secretary, Donald, to bring it about. He believes there's no such thing as a Palestinian. He's the man you've picked to be your Defense Secretary, along with your new ambassador to Israel. A joker used to play the banjo on television and sing country and Western evangelical ditties. called Mike Huckabee. I'm not making that name up. Mike Huckabee is the new US ambassador to Israel. He also does not believe that there is any such thing as a Palestinian. He also believes that there's nothing called the West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. It all belongs to Israel, and it should be annexed in defiance of international law, including United States law. What's going on, Donald? Where is RFK Jr.? What job is he getting? Is he just going to be copied in the emails, in the health service, in the relations with Big Pharma? You told us he was going to war to make America healthy again. As what? What is he going to war as? Thanksgiving? A turkey? What? Whatever happened to Tulsi Gabbard? Whatever happened to Elon Musk? A man whom, seems to me, you owe more to than anybody else in your circle. What happened to Donald Trump Jr., who told us he had a veto on these positions, who has been remorselessly denouncing the warmongers, remorselessly denouncing the neocons, the war hawks. He's even putting out memes on Twitter mocking people like Pompeo and people like Nikki Haley. Has he lost his veto? Has he lost his voice? I was just saying how impressive he was, how he might be the next president after his father. Turns out he's not a man, he's a mouse who's allowing all of this MIGA rampage to take place. Now, I'm sure, I can almost hear him say it, that Trump is saying he's putting all these warmongering, war hawk neocons in place so he can overrule them. But they'll be in the tent and won't be able to do anything about it. But that presupposes you're smarter than all of them combined, Donald. And that's a stretch. It's a stretch to believe that you've brought about half a dozen John Boltons, about half a dozen Mike Pompeos into your tent because you're playing some 5G chess match. I find it difficult to believe. And even on the Ukraine, which is the principal reason that I was happy that he defeated Kamala Harris, the early signs even on that are not good. The New York Times said that he had a conversation with President Putin, but he didn't. He still hasn't. He spoke to every Uncle Tom Cobley and all, but he hasn't spoken to Vladimir Putin. But he has spoken to Zelensky. He is talking about appointing a Ukraine peace envoy. Why do you need a peace envoy? Just stop the money. Just cancel the checks. And then Zelensky must fall. Then a new government can be chosen in Kiev. And with that new government, Russia can negotiate. Why not cut to the chase, Donald? Who is this Ukraine peace envoy? At this rate, it'll be Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or George W. Bush at this rate. Why not put Dick Cheney and his daughter in your cabinet while you're at it? Have you betrayed everybody, Donald, before you're even in post? Were you lying to us all that you were the anti-war candidate? Were you lying to the voters in Michigan on the eve of poll when you said that you needed the war in the Middle East to stop now? Ceasefire now? Were you lying to us? Were you lying to those that wanted you to make America great again? who wanted to put America first when all the while you were determined to put Israel first, to make Israel great again. It's beginning to look that way. Unless you speak and act very quickly indeed, that's what people are swiftly going to conclude. Indeed, many have already concluded. Now, it's been some time, and you can understand the Iranian strategic patience. It's been some time since the promised retribution for the third missile attack on Iran by Netanyahu's apartheid state was answered. Is it going to be answered? Will it be the comprehensive answer that we have been repeatedly promised, that has been repeatedly threatened? Or is there something going on in the corridors? Is there a back channel somewhere in which, for some presumably weighty prize in return, Iran isn't, after all, going to retaliate? Well, a clue is that the airspace over the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps headquarters has been cleared tonight for 48 hours, indicating presumably that some kind of test is going to be fired. But there have been other tests already fired. The question the world is asking: will Iran answer Netanyahu? I can see arguments either way. I'll be perfectly blunt and frank with you. But with Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, with Mike Huckabee ensconced in Jerusalem as the ambassador, with Adelson's $100 million burning a hole in Donald Trump's pocket, I have my doubts, you know, as to what the United States' true intentions in the Middle East are. Lastly, the runt. He says that he will not allow the United States to pull the plug on Zelensky. So we've got a poll running. Will NATO veto Ukraine peace? Will NATO veto the Ukraine peace? Vote yes or no on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my Twitter, my X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. And if you are watching on the YouTube stream, let me say a big thank you to the more than 500,000 subscribers that I now have on my channel. In fact, 500,870. We were just a kick in the backside of 500,000 on Sunday. Now we are on our way to 501,000. Thanks to each and every one of you. If someone can get me who the 500,000th subscriber was, I'll give them a shout.